another of our name-based puns. It's time for Is That Riddick-ulous? First up, if I said Cam Ward, week 1, #1 overall pick, is going to light up a very good Denver defense. Lewis, is that ridiculous?
As much as I love Cam Ward, yeah, that's a little ridiculous. Vance Joseph has got the Denver Broncos defense humming right now. They can rush the passer. They got the best cover corner in the NFL. Cam is going to have a great season. He just is. Just let him have his growing pains. Let him crawl before he walks. Let him walk before he runs. But once he gets running, he will light some people up. But it's just not this week.
All right, so we start with a younger quarterback. Let's go to an older one. If I said Matthew Stafford is going to throw 3 touchdown passes in the opener against Houston, is that ridiculous?
Yeah, that's a little ridiculous. Look, the Houston Texans can rush the passer as well as anyone. They've got a bunch of dogs on that defense. We've been worrying about Matthew Stafford all preseason long as far as the status of his back. Has not played. Look, I think he's another guy. You're going to have to let him ease himself into it. He's right away stepping right into the fire going against the Houston Texans. 3 touchdowns, that's a little much. Yeah, I'll say that's ridiculous.
Okay, fair enough. And then last one, Sunday night, Ravens and Bills. If I said this is a preview of the AFC Championship game, would that be ridiculous?
No, that's not ridiculous at all. I could totally see that being the case here. Look, the AFC is loaded. We all know that. We know that it's nothing but heavyweight after heavyweight, and they're just going to absolutely bloody each other's nose all season long, and they're going to do it again in the playoffs. This is, though, I think one of these games where I think this will be a little bit of a precursor to how we think the season is going to go, and I think for Baltimore, and we'll get into this later on, this is huge as opening games go.
Don't do it later on.
Yeah, let's do it now. I forgot it was on the rundown right now, so let's just do it right now then. Yeah. Absolutely.
Why is this game so important to the Ravens?
I think from a mental standpoint, this team was devastated the way they lost to Buffalo last year. Devastated. I mean, from Mark Andrews to Lamar Jackson himself, the way in which they dropped the ball, literally, in that football game, I think has really weighed on this football team all offseason long. Because they know it just like we talk about it. They know they're the best roster in the NFL when you look at them 1 through 53. They have got nothing but playmakers and studs at every single position, and they fortified it this year. To come out of the gate and go to Buffalo, to the place where they lost, that was their last game of the season a year ago, and lose the opening game, I think would be devastating for them mentally.
Kmart is covering that game for us for ESPN and Sunday Countdown. Open up the book here. What are the storylines going into this one?
I think Lou hit it on the head from the standpoint of they're going back to the scene of the crime, essentially. After that Bills loss, Lamar talked about, I'm so sick of being right there and still not being able to punch the ticket. I think when you look at the Ravens, as good as the Eagles are, the Ravens are the only thing that can stop the Ravens. In the last couple of years, the Ravens have stopped themselves. So everybody talked, players talked about how Lamar Jackson kind of came in with a different, mentally he's in a different place. That those disappointing losses, he thought about them probably every day because of the competitor he is, but he's being more vocal in practice. Now the goal is, hey, we know you can be the guy, but you got to make sure everybody is focused and locked in from jump.
I'm told Nick wants to jump in. Go, Dominique.
Oh, no, I just want to disagree just a little bit because I think the Ravens are, not that anyone's suggesting that they're not mentally tough, but they lost in the playoffs a year ago to the Chiefs and then came out the first game of the season last year and lost to the Chiefs. And guess what? They end up winning 12 games and were a dropped 2-point conversion away from getting closer to the AFC Championship game. So I think this game is hugely important for the Ravens, but for slightly different reasons. I'm not concerned about them going into some psychological hole. I think they'll bounce back from that. They have the pedigree to do so. But I do think that losing this game matters as far as home field advantage is concerned because the Bills have a much easier way to go in their division that's not nearly as competitive as the Ravens in their division is going to be.
I'm just going to say a quick look. I think there's a cumulative effect of this, though.
Yeah.
The fact that they continue to get close, and they keep losing these big games.
Right.
And the players themselves are the ones who talk about the fact that, look, we're tired of this, as Kim just mentioned.
So the Ravens storyline is an easy one to understand. Peter, I feel like the storyline all summer has been, it's Josh's year.
This is it.
This is their year.
The torch has somehow been passed already, even though Mahomes beat him last year. But after winning an MVP, after getting married and having all the ballyhoo around that, and now with this talk of the Bills don't play anybody this year. They're going to be the 1 seed. They're going to have home field advantage. It just feels like the momentum has completely shifted from Kansas City at some point in the AFC to Buffalo. And now Buffalo has to actually go and do it.
Yeah.
So I look at it, this is Josh's time. He's knocked on the door enough. He's gone up against Mahomes in the playoffs enough. If ever there is a year for Buffalo to finally seize that crown from Kansas City. It's this year, and if you start off losing,
Every year, I feel like
I know
we say that every year.
I know, but
is
this
the
year
moment,
feels like it
Josh.
because we saw KC lose the way they did to the Eagles,
Yeah.
and that almost felt like a chapter close. Louis Riddick, I like how you're getting fired up. Give it to me. This is how it feels. Just from our seat here in New York City,
I'm not
like
gonna give it to you.
the Bills have already done it. They've already become. Now they're the 1 seed, and everyone's chasing Buffalo.
Having spent brief time in Buffalo, living there, seeing them over the years, Buffalo is at its best when nobody believes. And I think Sean McDermott still wants to create that narrative that we are the underdog in Buffalo, we're the small, nobody's given. And it's like, no, actually, everybody's saying you got the quarterback to do it.
Yeah.
To your point, Peter, when they seem to be underdogs, that's what they use. When they were losing, midway through the season, everybody's like, oh, the Bills are done, and they rattle off 8 games in a row, and I think they live in that spot. That's where they thrive. Now the pressure is on.
From a historical standpoint, as you begin this season, to me, the most interesting storyline is, can either Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson finally get that championship? Because both of them are in a position now to elevate from being all-time good quarterbacks, which is what they are, to becoming all-time greats.
Yeah.
All either of them needs is a championship, and now we put them in historical perspective with the greats of all time. They can't both win it this year. Maybe one of them finally gets it done.
Here's the most interesting thing. I wasn't going to give it to you.
You were.
I liked it.
A little bit.
But here's the thing, though. Kansas City's better this year than they were in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I know people want to take the Kansas City Chiefs of the Super Bowl down in New Orleans and go and just take them and just pick them up and put them right here in week 1. They're not the same team. They are they will probably lose more games this year than they lost last year, but they're a better football team. That's a fact. And that's why I'd say, look, we can talk Buffalo and we can talk Baltimore and we can talk whatever team we want. And I agree that we should. Kansas City's going to be right there again.
The AFC runs through.
Right there
They don't
again.
have a big 3. They have a huge 3 in the AFC right there. What's your number? Hey, Schrager, how many touchdowns is Joe Burrow going to throw against Cleveland on Sunday?
Joe Burrow's going to score 3 touchdowns. He got his guys, Higgins and Chase. They restructured Chase Brown's contract. There are no excuses for this offense not to put up a ton of points. Cleveland should be a win. Unlike all the other starts of the season that they've had under Zach Taylor, they should get off hot. And Joe Burrow should throw 3 touchdowns.
And he may need them all if his defense struggles as badly as it has. Lewis, let's talk about Bijan Robinson. How many yards from scrimmage do you like for him in a big game against Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I'm going to say 110. He maybe goes over that, maybe not. Look, I think Tampa Bay's for real. I think that's a team that's being slept on. I think their defense is going to be formidable, but this dude is the truth. There's nothing he can't do. He can run it inside, outside, catch it out of the backfield. 110 may be low ultimately, but I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team not to be slept on.
Bijan, the number 1 pick in a lot of fantasy drafts. And then finally, Nick, how many rushing touchdowns for Saquon tomorrow night against Dallas?
Yeah, I just got 1 rushing touchdown for Saquon. I suspect that this is going to be more of a big Jalen Hurts game. I think Saquon obviously is going to be incredible because he always is, but we have the tush push that's going to steal a couple of touchdown opportunities from Saquon. And also, I think Hurts through the air is going to be the focus of the Eagles in this competition.
Well, it would be interesting to see what they choose to do against Dallas, but what they've already chosen to do is fascinating. They're the defending champs, and I'm always interested in the psychology of how champions choose to go about that defense. So I want you to hear from Nick Sirianni and A.J. Brown about how little time they're spending in the rearview mirror.
How do you feel about the fact that even though it is banner night for you guys, the fans will still have the standard of performing and winning at a high level?
Yeah, I didn't know it was banner night. We won't be out for that.
I think from the outside, I think the city and everybody has been talking about it, but this building has been locked in. We put that to bed long ago, and like I said, we just ready to go. That's over with.
Okay, so I listened to that one more carefully this time because I thought that when we did the notes yesterday, I thought the most important part was him saying we're not going to be out there for banner night. That's significant. How about him saying he didn't even know it was banner night? I mean, that is either not true or it is so myopic, like his focus is so singular, he didn't even realize they're raising the championship banner that these guys have worked their entire lives to earn.
I've covered a bunch of season openers, and every single one of them, since they started them on Thursday nights, they raised the banners. Nick Sirianni knows that. He knows that. I also would say, as much as we're ESPN, we have this new partnership with WWE, there is a little bit of the wrestling feel of this, too, in that Sirianni is saying, we are going to play the heel this season. We are not. He does have to report to a boss, though. Is Jeffrey Lurie aware, the owner, that his team is not going to be on the sidelines when the banner gets raised? I am very fascinated to see at 8 o'clock Thursday night if we see the Philadelphia Eagles on the field or not. If they're in the locker room while they raise the banners and it's ho-hum, that would be very, very unique for a team who's looking to defend and celebrate a Super Bowl championship.
So that part of it aside, I do think it is all super interesting. But I also think this, just to genuinely the psychology of how teams go about this. And I read stories this summer that Jalen Hurts reached out to Michael Jordan. You know, they can't get any better than that, obviously, and what it's like to come back and defend a championship and all that sort of thing. So the psychological piece of it, I think, is interesting. Nick, what do you think, as my resident psychologist, what do you think of the way they're going about it, basically saying we're not defending anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick Sirianni has come a long way as far as being a leader. I think he chose his words very carefully. I think there's a couple of ways to go about this. You want to create two things with your team, and Lewis mentioned this earlier. It's like you want to avoid complacency. You want to create some sort of togetherness. The togetherness is always created by us against the world. Nobody likes us. Everyone's coming to get us. And you want to create some sort of a way to avoid complacency, like a reason to do the extra work. If you come into this season in a celebratory mood, then it's like, all right, maybe I don't have to stay after. I'm not as hungry. When you're working to like prove yourself, it's a little different. So I think that's the approach that he's taken. I think it's fine to go the other way and say, we're champs now, so we have to work twice as hard. That's one way to go about it. But Sirianni's going the other way where it's like, just forget it even happened. None of it ever happened. We are still trying to prove ourselves in a way, which, I mean, I think back to his opening press conference, Nick Sirianni has become like a much better coach in ways that I think are shown through him winning the Super Bowl, but not something that I think is readily like available for us to appreciate all the time. But seeing that clip, he looked confident in control.
That's fair. So there's the psychological piece. And now let's dive into the actual game itself. The Dallas Cowboys are a fascinating team to me. That's who the Eagles play tomorrow night, in case you're not aware. Because a month ago, I was sitting here thinking they could be pretty good this year. Like, they added George Pickens. This offense should be explosive if Dak Prescott is healthy. Every time Dak Prescott has been healthy, they win a lot of games. When last seen healthy, he was the runner-up for MVP of the league. And the defense might be a little better. Matt Eberflus knows how to coach a defense. Then they go and have a month worth of ridiculous drama with Micah Parsons and ultimately trade away their best defensive player. So I guess what I'm asking you is, are the Cowboys there to be the sacrificial lambs in this opening game, or do you see Dallas making this a game that is worth watching all the way to the end of the fourth quarter?
In particular, because it's week one, yeah, I think it's absolutely going to be something you're going to watch all the way to the fourth quarter, because these games are always a roll of the dice. You don't know how anybody's going to react to actually playing football for 3 straight hours when you basically have been playing, with just helmets and maybe shells and shoulder pads all preseason long. That being said, look, this team has a ton of firepower. We know that on the offensive side of the football. They got to create explosives down the field. This cannot be a 3 yards in a cloud of dust game. Dak has to earn his money. CD has to earn his money. George Pickens has to go ahead and go off so he can get his eventually. So they have the ability to do that. The question is this. Even with a guy like Kenny Clark coming in there, and now, as Jerry said, they can stop the run. We're going to find out if you can stop the run, because this is the best offensive line in football.
I think the Eagles are going to win this one, but I think the Cowboys, Brian Schottenheimer, as a first-time head coach, where your best player has just been traded away, I think he has to come in there in that the night before meeting and say exactly what Nick Sirianni is telling his team, which is, hey, nobody's picking us. Nobody expects anything. This is an opportunity. Hey, everybody's talking about how our best players out the door and in Green Bay. Defense, it's on you. Guys have to be better. Dak, you're healthy. Like, we've got George Pickens, this offense. For me personally, where's the pass rush coming from? Who's running the football, and can they run it effectively for the Cowboys? And can the Cowboys defense stop the run? Those are questions that still need to be answered, but it's a
look at the screen.
Right here.
If Brian Schottenheimer is looking for any more motivation, there it is. The whole world doesn't think we can win.
I will say this, to Kimberly's point, I spoke to sources in Dallas, and I said, well, how do you replace that? And they're very high on Sam Williams. They're very high on Dante Fowler. What's the BC rookie that they took in the second?
Ezeraku.
They love him.
Yep.
They don't think, internally in that building, they don't think they are suddenly falling off a ledge without Micah Parsons. If they were a Super Bowl contender with Micah Parsons last year, they certainly weren't when Dak went down, and they weren't even relevant when it mattered. So they're without Micah, and they believe they've got some young legs, and they can hold their own in the pass rush, and they got better inside with Kenny Clark. Whether that's true or false, We'll have to see.
I will say this. I don't know that the Cowboys win the game. I love them plus the 7.5. It's a big number. I mean, plus 7.5 is a very big number. It moved over the sort of magical line of 7 with the Micah trade. It went from 6.5 to 7.5. I don't know that Dallas wins the game, but I love the Cowboys plus the
That
number
graphic is so incriminating for all of us.
Yeah, especially week 1.
Yeah.
I mean, week 1 is an absolute toss-up across the league.
Yeah.
Especially if, as Peter suggests, the owner is going to force Nick Sirianni against his will to bring his team out there onto the field and watch the banner go up, and they'll be overcome by complacency. And the next thing you know, the Cowboys are running it up and down the field. All right,